It's a great pleasure to see so many esteemed colleagues and friends in this conference. And today we have a special session, No Simple Stories, #2, Lithuanian Jewry in Historical Perspective. And we'll have many exciting things in this conference, presentation of new books, discussions, presentations of new projects, research projects. But at the beginning I would like to give the floor for the welcome speech to Her Excellency Mrs. Asta Skaisgirytė Liauškienė, Ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania in the United Kingdom.
Thank you. I do not want this computer to be in front of you and not to see you. You will know the name of the conference anyway. The Hanukkah holidays are over and we are back to work again. So, dear President of the Board of Jewish Deputies, dear former President, dear President of the Lithuanian Jewish community, dear member of the European Parliament, and we have the honor that you chair this meeting, Mr. Donskis. Dear historians, professors, scholars, dear colleagues, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, shalom to everybody. It is a great honor for me today to open this conference, already the second, on the Lithuanian Jewry. It is understood that 3 times need to make a tradition, so I believe next year, at the 3rd opening of the Litvak Days, we will be able to say that the new tradition was born. The tradition to know, to remember, and to acknowledge the rich heritage of my fellow countrymen, Jews, who have been living in Lithuania since the 14th century. I will not give you a lecture on the Lithuanian Jewish history. It is up to the historians to do so. So I am particularly grateful to the researchers who are participating in our conference. Professor Kukliansky, Professor Kukliansky. Please. There is a seat reserved just for you. Yeah. Professor Zimra, please appear to the public. Professor Zimra from the United States. Professor Desaitė from Lithuania. Dr. Stelunas. Dr. Guinea. Dr. Victor. My dear friend from Paris, Yves Plastreau. There are so many others, but I'm afraid that you will be tired clapping, you know, all the time. So we will have an opportunity today and tomorrow, as you know, to listen and to discuss with them various aspects of Jewish history in Lithuania. Let me just outline what the Lithuanian government has been doing lately in the Jewish matters. Back in 2009, the 3rd World Litvak Congress took place in Vilnius. The event was inaugurated by the Lithuanian President Liauškienė. She stated at that Congress that, I quote, Lithuania will always be home for all Litvaks all over the world. End of quote. Strong saying and very true. Since then, the government's actions were directed towards the following lines. First, historical justice, preservation of memory, Holocaust education. Second, fighting anti-Semitism. And third, research and preservation of the Jewish culture and heritage in Lithuania. Let me elaborate a little bit on each of them. I would like to start with the historical justice, very important topic. The topic that emerged in Lithuania only 20 years ago and is an ongoing process. Indeed, during the Soviet occupation, the Lithuanian society was cut off from the Western world, and access to the abundance of the worldwide research
on the Holocaust was simply not able to be reached. The Lithuanian scholars could not participate in the historical, legal, or political debates in these matters. Just after the re-establishment of independence, that the genuine Holocaust research has become possible. Lithuanian historians opened new tragic pages on our Jewish history and disclosed horrific facts about the genocide of the Lithuanian Jewry that were neglected for very many years. I have to note that the International Commission on the Evaluation of the Crimes of Nazi and Soviet occupation regimes was renewed recently and also expanded. Some of its members are also taking part in this conference. The Parliament of Lithuania declared the year 2011 as the year of remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust in Lithuania. So the government approved a special program, implemented it. The idea of this program was to honor the memory of victims of Holocaust and to pay tribute to those who fought against fascism, but also to those who rescued Jews. The Holocaust education is vital in implementing the historical justice. And in this respect, the International Historical Commission prepared a comprehensive national program on Holocaust and tolerance education. The program was rather positively received by internationally recognized Holocaust scholars and educators. And cooperation agreements on the implementation of this program were signed between the Commission, Yad Vashem, and the Washington Memorial Museum. I must know that in Lithuania, a network of Holocaust and tolerance education centers has been created. Today, this network consists of about 80 centers in secondary schools, and it continues to grow. The centers arrange educational activities for schools and local communities by applying rather contemporary educational methods. Training includes seminars, usually these seminars, and cover a wide spectrum of topics like Jewish history, anti-Semitism, Nazi ideology, tolerance in a contemporary society. They also look after cemeteries and memorial sites. The idea of historical justice led to a new law adopted in the Lithuanian Parliament in 2011. It is the law called the Law of Goodwill Compensation for the Immovable Property of Jewish Religious Communities. The compensation is about £13 million, will be paid in the period of 10 years. Under this law, the compensation may be used for the religious, cultural, healthcare, educational, scientific goals pursued by the Jewish community in Lithuania. The president of the Lithuanian Jewish community may want to tell us more about this law. I will just mention that following the adoption of this law, the government of Lithuania decided to create a foundation, a special foundation to do with these compensation matters, and it is set up by the Lithuanian Jewish community together with representatives of the Jewish organizations abroad. I may note only that the foundation will also support the survivors, victims of the Nazi occupation, who today are in need of social needs and social assistance. The second axis of the government's action is directed towards fighting anti-Semitism. Lithuania, unfortunately, like some other countries in the world, has not been spared of anti-Semitic outbursts. Living in a democratic society where the freedom of expression is and should be respected, it is essential to draw the line when an expression turns out to be anti-Semitic or xenophobic. It is to be done by all people guided by common sense. But first of all, it is the task of the political elite and intellectuals. I'm convinced that the role of intellectuals is vital in raising society's awareness of the anti-Semitic and xenophobic sentiments. While it is up to the politicians to set up the legal framework to deal with such deeds. For example, recently, the Lithuanian Penal Code was amended, and now it is recognized that the anti-Semitic motivation is an aggravating circumstance in probable cases. Moreover, since 2010, 13 cases of actions qualified as anti-Semitic have led to pre-trial investigations. An important aspect in dealing with anti-Semitism is monitoring of the virtual space. Again, according to the Lithuanian Prosecutor General's office, 95% of hate crimes, and hate crimes they include anti-Semitism, but it's not only anti-Semitism, the notion is a bit wider. So 95% of hate crimes are being perpetrated on the internet, as a rule posted anonymously. Last year, 300 cases of hate crimes were registered by the Lithuanian Prosecutor General. In this regard, the role of media and internet news portals owners should not be underestimated. A quick and uniform response to anti-Semitism online should be given in no time. Third, but not the least, axis of government's actions is to encourage the research and preservation of the Jewish culture and heritage of Lithuania. Historical and spiritual cultural heritage of Lithuanian Jews is carefully collected, restored and exhibited in the Vivian Jewish State Museum, which is also a sponsor of this conference. I welcome the presence of the museum's representative in this room. Where is the museum's representative? Here she is. Welcome. A decade ago, Vilnius University opened the Center for Judaic Studies, and the Vilnius Yiddish Institute was established. Recently, the public Jewish library in Vilnius was opened. I may cite a few other examples for art lovers. You know most probably the renowned Jewish painter Albert Blatt. He's now exhibited in Lithuania in the Lithuanian National Gallery. And the other Jewish painter living in Boston, in the States, Samuel Bach, he's exhibited now in the Vilna Gaon State Jewish Museum. And there is one more thing which I'm tempted to tell you. Most probably you know the renowned Yiddish poet Abraham Suskover. His poetry book was published in the Lithuanian language for the first time in the Lithuanian language last year. And the idea is that this poet, the Vilna ghetto prisoner, he wrote in Yiddish that he could be accessible to wider public in Lithuania. The book, by the way, was presented at the Jerusalem International Book Fair. Last but not least, lately an archaeologist group excavated the fragments of the famous Vilnius Great Synagogue, which was barbarically destroyed, as you may know, by the Soviet authorities in the post-war period in the 1950s. So there is an idea, yet to be implemented, to conserve these fragments and to display them to the public. Dear friend, scholars, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to finish my introductory remarks with this image of the synagogue. Let it be the symbol of the revival of the Lithuanian Jewry, both in Lithuania and abroad. I wish you a very fruitful discussion today, to be continued tomorrow. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency. Now I have the pleasure of giving the floor to Mr. Vivian Wineman, President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Mr. Wineman.
Your Excellency, distinguished academics, ladies and gentlemen, it is for me a great honour to be able to attend here at this event to mark the achievements and the history of Lithuanian Jewry. Let me first declare an interest. My mother was the daughter of Lithuanian Jews, and she settled in a town which was settled entirely by Lithuanian Jews, except for one Polish Jew, and they would have nothing to do with them because the Lithuanian Jews regarded themselves as superior. They embodied the sort of pure tradition of Talmudic scholarship and of rationalism. And this traces back to one of the great figures of Lithuanian Jewish history, the Vilna Gaon, who's been mentioned, the museum in his name. And he fought a very, very powerful battle against forces of irrationalism which he felt were emerging in the Jewish world. And the result was that Lithuanian Jewry took a path purely of its own. And of course for Jews, Lithuania, we're great imperialists for Lithuania, just like expatriate Lithuanian Jews and the descendants of Lithuanian Jews among the keenest Lithuanian patriots in the world. And for a Lithuanian Jew, cities like Riga and Minsk, and as well as Kaunas and Vilnius, are all part of what we call Lithuanian Jewry, the Litvaks Preserve. And these areas carved out a tradition of rationalism and of scholarship, which became a model for Jewish institutions of learning all across the world. And so there was this enormous pride that Lithuanian Jews took in their country, in their community, and an influence which they had on the rest of the Jewish world. And there was a very famous, in Jewish world, quite a well-known writer, Chaim Bermant, who died a few years ago. And he came from Scotland. He was born in Lithuania, but he was brought up in Scotland. And his English was almost unintelligible. But he used to be very proud of the fact that he spoke the Queen's Yiddish, because his Yiddish was Lithuanian Yiddish, and that was always regarded as absolutely the creme de la creme. This is, however, as the conference is very rightly entitled No Simple Stories, there is, however, a dark side to this, and we have to be conscious of it. The borders of Lithuania are they moved, and before the Second World War, obviously they were in a rather different position than they were today. But if we include all those Jews who would normally consider themselves to be Litvaks, the Jewish population of Lithuania was in excess of 220,000, I think, in 1941. It was a very sizable community, and it was obviously a leader of world Jewish communities. Today, I believe there are barely 5,000. And the Holocaust in Lithuania was one of the most complete. I think of all the sizable communities, the Holocaust in Lithuania was the most complete of all. And the numbers of Jews who survived were pitifully small, and now we have a very, very small remnant. And of course, part of that is because the Holocaust actually started in Lithuania, in a sense. Because although the persecution of the Jews began as soon as the Nazis came to power in 1933, and although the persecution of the Polish Jews began as soon as Poland was conquered by the Nazis, and they were forced into conditions which were inhumane and would have resulted in death, the actual systematic murder of community after community by the Einsatzgruppen really started with Barbarossa. And the communities in Lithuania were overwhelmed in those summer months in 1941. And we had within weeks, the commando squads were being sent out there, and the Lithuanian Jews were being massacred wholesale. And the result was a very, very tiny number survived. There is also the fact that has to be acknowledged, as it has to be acknowledged all over Eastern Europe, with the presence of anti-Semitism among the local population and the way in which collaborators did help the Nazis on their work. And we have to see, and that's why it was so, for me, so heartening to hear Your Excellency refer to the work being done by the Lithuanian government today, because there is an enormous burden that we have to discharge, the rising tide of anti-Semitism in Europe, and in particular in Eastern Europe. And if I may mention the sort of things that are mentioned to me as President of the Board of Deputies, how concerned we were at things like the Prague Declaration, the attempt to equate the crimes of the Nazis and the Soviets, and the attempt somehow, as we saw in other countries in Eastern Europe, to somehow make the Jews responsible for their fate, as we had in relation to Jewry, because of the crimes that the Soviets committed, which was somehow the Jews actually participated in them. So it's wonderful to hear that the Lithuanian government is actually taking a firm stand against that. And I'm sorry that it's necessary for people to have to do so. Part of the key to it is Holocaust education. And immediately after this, I am actually having to attend the annual general meeting of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, which is actually dealing with that subject. It's wonderful to hear that this initiative is also being taken in Lithuania, and that attempts will be made to make sure that insofar as people need to be taught, that they are taught what the Holocaust was, and above all that survivors of the Holocaust are treated well and are not harassed. It's heartening, therefore, to be here from both sides, as a Jew and as a proud descendant of Lithuanian Jews, but also to hear our hosts and to hear how enlightened they are and the great work that they'll be doing. And once may I thank you on behalf of all of us for hosting this today.
Much from all the Jewish community and from all my heart. And if anybody from you would have any questions about the law on the goodwill compensation or about the foundation which was founded not long ago by the Jewish community together with WGRO, the World Jewish Restitution Organizations, and maybe any other issues connecting with the legal side of our Jewish life, because I'm a lawyer. So please do not hesitate to ask the questions. I'll answer with a big pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kukliansky. Thank you very much.